Between the two of them, the inside of coats, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome, one and all, to a brand new series here at the VRRC. It's the GT500, and for this first evening, it's one of four. It's a shorter series, but it doesn't mean it's going to have any less exciting racing. The touring cars that we've just had last series was spectacular. The finishing was fantastic, and we've moved on to something that's been asked for an awful lot by my co-commentator for this evening, and that's to bump up the horsepower, bump up the aerodynamics, and all in all, make it a bit more of a handful to drive. That's because he's a bit of an alien in the cockpit. Anyway, let's see if he's as good at commentary. He has been subbing in the last couple of seasons quite a lot and has done a very good job of it as well. It's Lewis Edwards. Lewis, how the devil are we?
Really good, thanks, Jack. Really happy to be back in the commentary box. Obviously, we would love Andy back, but he has got other commitments at the moment, so he's unable to join us. So, Andy, if you're watching, I hope you're doing well, and we hope to have you back. But yeah, really looking forward to this. Definitely something I've been asking for rather nicely for quite a while. Some very fast cars, lots of downforce, lots of horsepower, and hopefully lots of fun.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't actually remember whether I actually introduced the name of the series, but it is the GT500, of course, Lewis. Something that I'll admit I only found out was under the other name of Super GT about 3 minutes before we went live, and that's why I hadn't heard of GT500. But I have heard of Super GT. So those out there who are sort of more casual fans of the Japan Racing Series or Asian Racing Series, you may well know it as that. And the GT500 is the top spec, isn't it, of racing over in Asia. So we're expecting these cars to be really rather hard to drive.
Yeah, they are quite difficult to drive because most sim racers will know what a GT3 car is. Well, this is that, but just a bit more or less of everything to make it a bit more interesting. It's about 100 kilograms lighter than a GT3 car. It's got at least 80 brake horsepower more, depending on the model, and there is significantly more aerodynamics at play on these GT500 cars. And for me, the real difficulty is when you're going through the slower to medium speed corners, that aerodynamics peels off very quickly. So you'll find yourself with not a lot of aero, but still quite a lot of speed. So I think that's where drivers are struggling a bit at the moment. But all in all, a mega combination, I think.
Yeah, we'll really test the drivers. And we've got some good tracks to test them as well, which, of course, we'll have a quick look at what the calendar consists of. I mentioned that it was a bit of a shorter series. Normally, we do six races or 8. Well, we've just reduced it down to 4. If anybody remembers the other sort of the truck racing and the NASCAR events, we only had 3. Well, we're doing some experiments here at VRRC, and we've upped it to 4 again through the campaign of Lewis Edwards wanting to drive these cars a little bit more, basically. Race 1, we're here at Suzuka, obviously very famous for being the F1 circuit. We've got Okayama, which is going to be an interesting one. I have one fun fact about Okayama, and it's going to be reserved for actually when we go, because I'm not going to ruin it now. Twin Ring Motegi and Sugo, which is a track. I'll be honest, I know Twin Ring Motegi. I've raced that on the sim a few times, but Sugo is not a track that I'm familiar with. What are we expecting on that final round, Lewis?
Well, I think pretty much exactly what you summed up there. It's a bit brand new to everybody. It's a very technical track. You've got to be very precise in that first part of the lap, which is on the left-hand side of the track map. And then it opens up really nicely. And that final corner, that very long right-hander, is going to require huge levels of commitment. You're nearly flat out through there in the little bit of testing I've done. So it'll be really interesting to see how people fare around a completely new track that most people may have never even heard of before.
Yeah, Lord knows they're going to try and go about 2 or 3 wide through there, aren't they? And they're going to be balancing on the throttle, on the edge of grip as well. It's going to be really exciting. Looking forward to that one. Just because it's a shortened championship, though, doesn't mean we don't have prizes on offer. We do have things up for grabs for a few drivers who win. It's slightly reduced, as you can imagine, because it's a reduced series, so we don't have necessarily the cam simulation wheel. We don't have the Aegon display, but don't worry, they are coming back as prizes in the next main series, which will be coming up straight after obviously the GT500s. But there is still prizes to be had, and it's merch. Everybody loves a bit of merch. Who doesn't like merch? It's well, a custom soft shell jacket, a soft shell jacket. This is going to be another tongue twister for me to get my head around, isn't it? And a first place trophy. And the soft shell jacket is actually all liveried up for VRRC. So if you do get that, then by all means, when we do the live streams and we bring up the cameras, we expect everybody who wins one to be in their merch. We also have custom gloves, VRRC gloves for second place, and of course the trophy. Third place is a customized t-shirt as well, a VRRC t-shirt. So when the kids go on the next non-school uniform days, they can look the coolest kids in the playground with their VRRC merch, and hopefully everyone will buy one. Third place trophy comes along with that as well. Fourth place is 2 hours at the sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre, and fifth place is 1 hour sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre as well, obviously down in Leighton Buzzard. And the driver of the round gets a nice shiny medal as well. And if you're wondering where on earth are all the hats and the other jackets and everything like that, as I said, they will make a reappearance just in the next main championship that will be running. A bit like what we did in the touring cars. This is obviously a bit of a filler episode, you could argue, but Lewis, still some great prizes, and I have to say, Rich was actually asking us all, wasn't he, about the design of the shirts and the jackets and everything like that. So we've tried to come together, but they do look damn good.
Yeah, I think the tiny little pictures you see there don't really do it justice. They are really well designed. As you mentioned, we've all had a bit of an input on making the design really something you can be happy to wear. And they do say custom, and that's because you can have your name and your race number printed on them as well. It's very difficult to see because I've got to fit them on a tiny little square box to put them on the stream. But we should at some point get some nice, really high quality images that they start out as in full size, so you can see just how nice they can look. And yeah, I think we're going to have 3 very happy recipients of some custom stuff at the end of the season.
We should do indeed, and just drive that home. As I said, if I won them, which never would happen, it would be number 98 Jack Oliphant on the actual gloves or t-shirts or soft shells. So yeah, hopefully the drivers will enjoy customizing that and get their very own unique VRRC bit of clothing. And don't worry, we haven't relied on Rich Hayden for his styling. We have all inputted on that one. Right, coming up next will be a bit of a hot lap around Suzuka, I believe, and it will be in the capable hands of Lewis Edwards in one of these GT500 cars. Actually, Lewis, which car did you do it in?
I did it in the Acura NSX, which is called the SNX for licensing reasons in this pack. And yeah, it's pretty mega.
Awesome. Well, let's give it a go. Suzuka in the GT500.
Hello and welcome to the first round of the VRRC GT500 Championship. We are starting the special event at Suzuka now. Heading down the pit straight, you want to prepare yourself for turn 1. You're going to be turning while braking here, so it's a very difficult braking zone here. We're going to go down into 3rd gear. Important to hook up the final part of the apex through turn 1 there, not running too wide on the exit. Now through the S's, you don't want to use any of the red and white apex curbs through any part of this, as I find that just over-rotates the car too much. You just got to be a bit patient while you go through the S's. Important to get back over to the right-hand side nicely to open up this left-hander, as we're now finally out of the S's and heading on a bit more of a flat-out section approaching Degner 1 and 2. You want to have big commitment on the apex curb there. Important not to exceed track limits on the exit of both of these parts. Again, not using too much of the apex curbs. I find they tend to rotate the car a bit too much around here. Into the hairpin now, you're going to go down into 2nd gear. Try and square off the corner a little bit and get a nice exit here. You can use this exit curb if you wish. Now, heading down the hill, going to be completely flat out. Maybe a little slipstream opportunity here. And into spoon curve we go, down into third gear. Just be a bit patient on the exit. Make sure you hook up the final part of the corner here nicely and not exceeding track limits on the exit there. Heading up in towards one of the most famous corners in the world at 130R. Really important to get a good run through here. It is completely flat out in these cars, incredible levels of downforce in these GT500 machines, and into the final chicane you're going to be braking down into second gear. You want to use as much of the curb as you can while still remaining within track limits. I think we just about kept it on there, and then you want to go to the right hand side to minimise the distance to the finish line, and that completes a lap of Suzuka.
Yes, thank you very much, Lewis, for taking us through a lap of Suzuka. First hosted the F1 in 1982. Would you believe? That's a fun little fact that I googled while I was watching that lap around there. Currently, Joel Lask is the fastest person to be lapping it at the moment. All those 50 years later, 40 years later? Yeah, it is 40 years later, isn't it? 41 years later, in fact, actually. Obviously, in the virtual terms, though, probably back in... Can you imagine that, Lewis? Actually, back in 1982, if someone said in 40 years' time we'll be lapping GT500 cars or whatever car you could possibly imagine around a virtual version of the circuit, and it would be so close to reality. I don't think you could quite believe that, could you?
No.
We weren't alive, obviously.
Yeah, we weren't alive, and, well, I don't think even the computer was very alive at that point. So, yeah.
Not as we know it.
Yeah, definitely not as we know it. No, it must have been like a huge thing to not even consider would be a thing at this point. And then it makes you question, well, in 40 years, what are we going to be doing that we haven't thought of now?
Yeah, let's not get into that because we could be here all night, couldn't we, when we got some cars to look around the track on. At the moment, Joel Lask is doing a pretty good job, isn't he? Hustling around this circuit, but we have to say we only went into qualifying as soon as we started that little track walkthrough, so they haven't had much time at all. This is probably going to be their first flying lap now, actually, you imagine, wouldn't you, Lewis? And although Joel Lask is at the top, they look a little bit of a messy final sector. I can imagine that not only him, but most of the other drivers out there will be able to hook that up a little bit better. He does come across the line and sets a 1 minute 45.381. Is there any chances of track limit infringements around this circuit, Lewis, as well? Is another question that I was due to ask Rich before he disappeared, because of course he is racing today. But is there any opportunities for people to be too cheeky? Are we keeping an eye on anything out there?
Yeah, there's always the dreaded track limits question, but yes, there are plenty of places where you could extend the limits, but for the most part, it will either give you a track cut in-game correctly, or you will lose time doing it. So it makes my job a bit easier, as we see Joel getting quite close to the limits there on the exit of Degner 2. I had a feeling he might, just if he knew he was on camera. But yes, track limits is a difficult issue to police in real motorsport. In the virtual world, we have a replay where I can pick any camera angle I want, and I can view at any time I want. It doesn't matter whether I've looked at it live or not. And Joel had a very nice drift there, which we could have caught from any camera angle thanks to the sim. But I can look at every camera angle, and in the previous championship, that's what we've done. I've looked through every person's perspective for every session and noted where they've clearly abused the track limits. But for the most part, it's really only Degner 2 and the final chicane here that you can actually gain time for. But it seems most drivers, they all know the limits, and hopefully they're going to stick to them.
Yes, that's the fingers crossed moment anyway, isn't it? As Joel Lask comes across the line, this is to set another flying lap, but is it going to be quicker than the one he set before? Well, the answer is a resounding no. Eric Axelson is very, very close to him indeed, only 8/100th of a second. Now we've got a new driver though. We have a new driver, and I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly there. It's Eric Axelson. He's not new. Everybody knows who he is by now. But Odin Mazur, I'm going to guess I'm butchering that name, so I'm going to call him Odin for the time being until I get confirmation of how to say his name phonetically. He's flying out there, Lewis, isn't he? This isn't just a bit of a fluke. We've heard he's a very quick driver, and he's just put it on pole position to confirm my theory.
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite a quick time, bearing in mind that we've seen most drivers over 50 practice laps that is quicker than I believe everyone managed in practice, potentially with only the exception of Joel Lask. But that is a very impressive time. Obviously, Odin won't be carrying any ballast as it's his first race with VRRC. But Joel isn't exactly driving the heaviest car, and we always know Joel will be there or thereabouts with the top guys for pace. So yeah, Odin is really on the pace straight away. It's very good to see.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what he can do in these GT500 cars, and plus any other potential cars that we might be driving in future championships as well, because Odin looks like he's got the hang of these. He can probably get the hang of most other things as well, because they are, as we said many a time, a bit of a handful. Joel Lask has just gone green in Sector 2. Doesn't look like too many drivers going that much quicker. And did I hear a rumour out there, Lewis, that track state, which is something that we've been chatting about quite a lot over the last couple of series, isn't that locked for this championship? So we're not having a progressive track state.
Yes, this is true. The track state is locked at 100%, as these cars are quite difficult to drive, as Joel has just illustrated really well for us. So we felt it would just benefit everybody to give them that full 100% grip from the start, just so it negates one of the difficulty factors of driving these cars and makes them a bit more enjoyable for everyone to drive.
Yes, indeed. And you know, we're getting over this first round sort of rigmarole of going through all the new rules and anything that might have changed and all the sort of new things that we might need to keep you up to date with and everything like that. Another one, Lewis, I'm going to throw you under the bus here for is potentially, anyway, the cars that they can drive. Because, of course, there are 3 different cars that I believe they can drive, aren't they? It's the Nissan, Toyota, and the Acura, I believe.
Yep, that is correct.
Fantastic. I thought I got that wrong then.
They've all got kind of fake names that are similar to the real names for licensing reasons. These brilliant cars from United Racing Design, I believe is the full name, but it's URD for short, that made this mod pack. And in the testing for these cars, they actually used, obviously, the Japanese tracks. And the main one was Suzuka from all of those. So we are hoping that these will show how evenly bopped they are at the moment, with Odin and Joel at the front, less than a tenth, only a couple of tenths back to Eric and Scott Bugner. So we're seeing different makes of car and different levels of drivers with that ballast and that bop. They're all quite close together, so it's looking good so far.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed, because it's not like anybody can question the amount of hours that we put into battle. Well, I say we. I don't do any of it, ladies and gentlemen. I'll hold my hands up. I do none of the setup, hence why I'm questioning what the cars are as we turn up to the circuit, which I did know. You know, you gotta bring it for the audience. But Lewis does about 1,000 hours every single week in each car, balancing them to every single track, as well as, and not just Lewis, it's a fair few people that we have behind the scenes to get them sort of get a good grasp of what every driver can do, different types of driving styles and everything like that, and some more experienced than others and X, Y, Z. So we should have a pretty good spread of driver capabilities and the cars being able to be drivable for all different tracks as well, which is really very important, because we look to try and get as many people involved as possible. Doesn't mean they're easy though, because Joel Lask is really trying to push the limits as he tried to make up that 800th of a second to Odin, who's currently sat in first place. But Scott Bugner has just gone purple in Sector 1. He hasn't just gone pole, he hasn't done it yet. He needs to hook the other two sectors together. He's just going past where his teammate span it just before as he heads towards the hairpin. Scott Bugner is on an absolute flyer. I see that we have Kyle Felvis in the chat. So although Kyle is not actually racing with us, unfortunately, this evening, I'm not sure if he's going to be back for the next 3 rounds as well, or whether he's just sitting this championship out waiting for the next major one. But good luck, Kyle, for whatever you're doing in the meantime, I suppose. And Josh Martin saying, come on, Eric. I'm pretty sure we just saw Josh Martin out there on the circuit, did we not? So I don't know how he's doing that one.
I think Josh was in the pits when he sent that message, or he could have got Dave to send the message for him. Who knows?
Ah, that's true. I wonder if Dave is there. We don't have the in cameras, do we? Unfortunately, this time, but I'm sure they'll be back next time. It was quite good fun to see how everyone was doing, and plus, whoever wins the merch, you can show them on camera at the end of the day.
We do actually.
So Scott Bugner.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jack, but we do have the cameras on. But Josh had his camera on, so I was ready to cut straight to Josh. But unfortunately, his camera's turned off. So I think he's maybe fighting some technical difficulties. But, you know...
Might explain why he hasn't set a lap time, actually, as well.
Yeah, that might be a skill issue on Josh's part. He loves to do stuff for the content.
Such shade throwing out here. Yeah, he's currently got a 2:52 as his only lap time. Everybody else is in a 1:47-ish sort of area. So Josh not having the time of his life out there, but I'm sure he'll be trying to put in the lap times down as he smashes the curb at a bit of a weird angle. He does manage to clear it all up though and get back out there on circuit using a bit of the track limits, but this is an outlap, so he's just trying to warm the tyres up, we'll say, by using all of the track available. Yes, Kyle, hello. Unfortunately, he won't be here for the rest of the season. That is a bit of a shame, but so thank you very much for tuning in and getting involved in the chat. It's always nice to see. If you don't mind, you could share the stream, if you don't mind. So on pole position, still Odin. Joel Lasker's in second place. Eric Axelson is in third. Scott Bugner, he had a purple sector 1, but his sector 2 and 3 were a little bit down, so unfortunately he didn't get the lap quite together. As Josh Martin, well, gets it together with the wall, unfortunately, and his outlap isn't going particularly well. These cars are pretty strong. I don't know what the damage model is like on them, but I imagine if they're anything like the previous championships we ran, a little bump and scrape with the walls shouldn't hurt too much, but they are very aerodynamic heavy, aren't they, Lewis?
Yeah, they are. Damage-wise, I think you're right. It'll be a bit different due to how much of the performance from the car is... Oh, Joel Lasker's gone fastest at the moment.
Yeah, but purple sector 2 and 3. Sorry to cut across you there. I will get you to finish your thought, Lewis, about the damage and everything like that. But yeah, Joel Lask, absolutely rapid in sector 2 and 3, and he has just jumped above Odin by the same margin that Odin was above him about half a minute ago. So yeah, it's still less than a tenth between the two pole sitters. There's less than a tenth between third and fourth. So row number 2 is nice and close equally, and just having got Paul Laramie's got a green sector 1. But Josh Martin did come into the pits then, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Josh ended up tapping the wall. We saw it towards the end of his little excursion there. So I think that means he's had to hop into the pits. And dare I say it, I'm not sure whether he's going to get whereabouts is he on the track. Let's have a look. It's going to be nip and tuck as to whether he gets around to start a lap. Josh actually sent me a Discord message while he was in the pits. Simply just said, the championship's off to a great start.
Well, he clearly is still on good terms with you until he watches this back. Hopefully he won't bother watching qualifying back. There's no reason for him to, and he won't hear you throwing the shade. But his best lap is now a 1:49, which is still good enough for dead last. So he's not particularly enjoying himself out there, as we've seen already. 50-odd seconds to go in the first qualifying of the 4-round season. Joel Lask that is showing that he's back. He loves a GT car, does Joel, so does his teammate Scott Bugner. Odin's clearly very quick as a newcomer, but how is he going to mix it with the rest of them? It's always a little bit tricky, isn't it, Lewis? As Joel Lask gets the rear end right round almost, he manages to just about catch it. It's not going to be an improvement from him, absolutely no way, but he will be able to start one more lap. I will finish my question. When you come into a new championship, it's always a bit difficult when everybody else knows exactly how to race against each other. Everyone knows what each other are probably going to do, and there's some potential racing respect there. There's some potentially no racing respect. You know, it depends on who you're racing against. But when you're brand new, no one has any idea what you're going to do. You have no idea what anybody else is going to do. That's pretty scary to deal with, isn't it? I mean, when you're right at the sharp end, you don't want to ruin anyone else's race, but you also still want to get the win.
Yeah, I think it depends very much on what kind of a driver you are as to how you approach that. Are you more punchy and aggressive to kind of assert the dominance as a really good driver racecraft-wise immediately out the gate? Or do you want to settle in and just build up a kind of understanding of how other people race, what their weaknesses are? Because we know Scott and Joel have been racing in VRRC for longer than I've been here. So they know absolutely everything there is to know about how each other is. They've been friends since birth, I was told. So they really do know everything there is to know about each other. But they're now coming up against somebody they've never raced with again. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic of what's going to happen, and in not very long we're going to find out, because there's only 3 more people left to come over the line.
Yep, and Joel is one of them. He's not going to be going particularly quickly on this lap, though, because it's two disqualified sectors that he's put in. Odin has finished. He's got a purple sector 3, but it wasn't good enough to overturn a charging Joel Lask. It was an entertaining qualifying. Pole swapped over 2 or 3 times, but we've got a race to go, haven't we? And Josh Martin, is he still on a lap? I was about to throw to the advert, but
no, he's on an in-lap by the looks of it.
He's on an in-lap, yeah. So Josh Martin won't be setting any kind of quick times, and I saw John Jones actually parked on the inside of the circuit at one point. So I'm going to throw to a very quick advert. There is John Jones, in fact. When we get down to it, we'll have a chat with our pole position driver, Joel Lask, in about a minute's time. I shall welcome you all back to Suzuka, and I shall welcome to the commentary box our pole position sitter, Joel Lask. Joel, that was an entertaining qualifying. You didn't exactly have it easy, did you?
No, I thought I had it at the beginning there with that 0.3, but yeah, Odin came out of nowhere and stuck a quicker lap in. So yeah, it was all guns blazing for that final lap.
Is it fun to have another driver who is potentially a championship contender? I mean, obviously, it was only qualifying in the first round of 4, so we can't get too carried away. But it does look like we've got another quick driver on our hands, haven't we, to mix it with you, Scott, Eric. It's certainly shaping up to be a bit of an entertaining one.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's several people on this grid that are all championship contenders, but yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's a good start to quali, so let's see what happens in the race, because I'm sure it will turn itself on its head.
How do you think these cars are going to react to a race situation? Because I don't know how much of the sort of race practice you've done, or whether it's just been hot lapping or anything like that, but what's the slipstream like from your experience and all those sort of things? Are we expecting lots of dives? Are we expecting the slipstream to be having a massive effect?
I mean, the slipstream is ridiculous.
Okay.
You can pull from quite a way back, so that'll be quite interesting. I think it's just going to be a case of keep it on the track. After a few laps, these tyres go off, and then yeah, it's every man for themselves trying to keep it on. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, slow and steady wins the race.
Speaking of slow and steady and winning the race, tyre degradation. Can you go hard for the entire 20 minutes, or do you have to sort of manage that to an extent as well?
That's got to be managed. I mean, you can try go hard for the whole race, but yeah, I found it a bit iffy. I wouldn't like to try it.
Well, we know that you are a fan of GT cars. The GT3 Championship, I believe, was one of the championships where you really enjoyed as well. Is it quite a nice break for the touring cars to jump into one of these high-powered and sort of high-downforce machines?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, I enjoy the special events. I've done quite well at them the past 3 times, so see if we can make it a 4th, I guess.
I was going to say, I was just about to ask between the difference of the special events. Obviously, we had the NASCAR, we've had the truck racing, and now we have the GT500. I know we haven't raced it yet. I know it's a long way to go or anything like that. But is this your favourite so far, or do you have a special spot for one of the other two?
Ask me after this race.
Fair enough, yeah. Pretty good answer. Joel, congratulations on the pole position. Look forward to how you deal with Odin, starting alongside you on the front row, and obviously the 2 rapid drivers, Scott and Eric, just behind you. Good luck for race 1.
Nice one. Cheers, mate.
Right, I'm going to bring in somebody else that's jumped himself into the commentary box. We didn't invite him, but he just turns up whenever he wants to. It's Rich Hayden. And, well, Rich, this one, you're actually driving it, aren't you, this championship? And is that exciting, nerve-wracking, or are you just hoping that it's going to be over soon?
Yeah, I only came in so I knew when Joel was finished, so I put him back in the voice channel. But now I'm here.
Well, we've got another 4 minutes, so right.
Yeah, you're using me as a filler, right?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Fine. That's fine. I'm gonna have a go. Why not? Special events. I can't race in the normal championship, so let's have a go. See, I've unfortunately not had a lot of time to do any practice, so I'm middle of the pack. And these cars are very lively, but I'm looking forward to it.
I was going to say, they look like there's plenty to get a hold of. And from the deep depths of VRRC and that council chat that we're all in and everything like that, we're obviously not only planning for this championship, there's lots going on for the next one as well, isn't there? So we are continuously churning these things out. Yeah,
absolutely. So, there's a number of new bits and bobs coming on board. Eric's taken over the fun races that we do on Sunday evenings, free entry for everybody. We've got the Clios at Castle Combe coming this Sunday, so looking forward to that. Andy Carroll's taken over Time Attack from me. I just literally had to let some stuff go because I was trying to be a superhero and failing. So I've had to hand over some stuff to other people. And Andy's just told me what the first Time Attack's going to be, which is actually pretty cool. It's like a UK track day special. So all like real cool track day cars like Caterhams and Atoms and things like that on UK circuits. That starts week after next. Looking forward to that as well. And as you well know, we are deep in planning for our next touring car series, which is due to start in 2nd of August.
I was sort of beating around the bush whether to say actually say touring car series. Or
we can say touring car, yes.
Okay, but I was just saying major championship up until this point. But yes. It's going to be a touring car series, isn't it?
It's going to be a touring car series, yeah.
It's going to be using the same cars, new cars.
It's the same pack of cars. We're adding the Cupra to it, but the one thing that we are doing is we did some work on the cars before the last championship and improved them significantly, but we've got a very large list of to-do list of things to change on the cars. So we're playing around with the physics, we're playing around with the center of gravity, we're playing around with the colliders, we're playing around with the damage on it, just doing lots and lots of work just to make them even better than they already were. So I think there'll be 8 cars available, 2 rear-wheel drive, the BMW and the Infiniti, and then the usual spread of front-wheel drive cars as well.
Sounds very exciting indeed. And last thing from you, Rich, before we let you go and prepare, there's 2 minutes left, don't worry. The prizes for this series, obviously, no one's really seen the merch before, have we?
No.
So that's pretty exciting as well. And it can be fully customised.
Yes, it can be. So we can put your driver's name, driver's number. We can actually add anything you like to it, which is really good. So really looking forward to that. And obviously, it is our new teamwear range, which all profits of our teamwear range go to men's mental health charities. So it's a not-for-profit objective for us, just to basically help support some of the men's mental health charities that we already support in different ways. But I thought it was about time we did some teamwear. It all looks pretty cool. It's made by Delta Racewear, which is really high-end manufacturer of racewear mainly for karting, but they also do race suits for every series and teamwear as well. So really looking forward to getting that out there too.
Yep, I'm very glad I asked that because I didn't know half that information. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Rich. And I'll let you get back. You've only got a minute left before the start of race 1.
All right, thanks, mate. Have a good broadcast, guys. See you later.
Enjoy. Right, so Rich Hayden jumping in for a quick chat and revealing all the deepest, darkest secrets of VRRC and some of the non-deepest, darkest secrets, just some things that you might want to know as well. And you can buy any of those merchandise off the website, send Rich a message or anything like that. I'm not sure he's got a shop up on the website yet or anything, but if you send him a message, then by all means, he'll be happy to take your money and give it to the charity by the sounds of it. So fantastic stuff from VRRC. Right, 30 seconds left to go. Lewis, how are these cars going to handle? You've got 15 seconds to tell me how the first half of the lap's going to go.
I think we'll see at least 2 cars potentially half spin off the start. I think we're going to see Odin up the inside into turn 1, and I think we're going to see a collision between Scott and Joel at some point.
That's pretty good. Well, actually, it was bang on 15 seconds as well. Well done. Joel Lask on pole position. Odin Mazuria in second place. Eric Axelson, Scott Bugner on row number 2. How are they going to come out of the first couple of corners, though? That's the questions on everyone's lips. The engine notes rise. The red lights are on. And for the first time in the GT500 VRRC series, we are off. And Odin Mazuria doesn't get off the line at all. Joel Lask with an absolute rocket start. He's got at least 3 or 4 car lengths between him and second place, which is a guess for anybody, because all of a sudden somebody's off in the background though. And who was that who crashed off? I can't actually quite see. I'll try and catch up in a quick minute. It's, I think, potentially Chris Blakey. I think he was already back there. I'll try and have a look in a second. It's Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll, who was in the left-hand side of the wall. Car doesn't look too damaged. Just hope he can get back onto it for the next 19.5 minutes. You said that we've had 2 people half spinning. Well, we had 1 person fully spinning there, Lewis.
Yeah, I think Andy's going to have a bit of a struggle from there, because I think he's probably got a lot of aero damage. One thing about the damage model on the Assetto Corsa is, oh, Scott's round.
Oh, yeah,
There's
he's
your
got
other
a half spin. There it is. Oh, and Odin almost taking him as well, actually, coming across. There's Alok Iyengar with his second, with the second half spin of the race. And I think Scott Bugner, who's that going down? That's Odin as well. Odin on the left-hand side. He's in the wall. He's not even made it to the hairpin. I don't know how he's ended up there, but Odin is not moving at all. And at one point in the interviews, I said that he was a potential championship contender. Well, it's only the first race. He can still make his way up there if there was any drop rounds in play. But my goodness, that's not what you want to see on the first opening lap of this series. Eric Axelson versus Joel Lask there. Eric Axelson's actually got past Joel. I have no idea how that happened either there, Lewis.
Yeah, it was into Spoon Curve at some point. I don't know whether it was a mistake from Joel or a good move from Eric. We just saw the positions change on the order on the left-hand side, and I was like, all right, click on that. We'll see what's going on there. And I think we might see another move here from Joel if the slipstream is as powerful as he let on in the interview. I think it'll be up the inside fairly comfortably. No, the slipstream isn't quite as strong as he may be suggesting. Or Eric is running a very trimmed out Toyota clone.
It's like Toyota from GTA or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the Moyoda. Yeah, no, so we are running a semi-fixed setup. There's no hybrid. There's only 1 set of tyres, I believe, isn't there? So we're not sort of messing around with anything like that we do in the touring cars. But there are, it's sort of semi-fixed, isn't it? So talk us through that one very quickly, Lewis.
So, in simple terms, we fixed all of the things that are quite not as well known. So things like the alignment and the suspension, they require the most amount of time and effort and learning to figure out how to tweak. We just set those to something good and said, you're stuck with that. And then
big move by Scott Bugner up the inside side to interrupt you there. Paul Laramie slipping down a position, potentially 2 actually, as Rich Hayden tries to follow it through. Going through the right-hander, now that's 200 yards, side by side. Rich Hayden's clinging on to the adhesion of his tyres on the right. And he's just about, I thought he was going to look up the inside again. No, he thinks much better of it, because that was probably never really going to be on. So Paul Laramie, Scott Bugner swapping positions. Sorry, Lewis, yeah, so anything big, say if you were in real life, something that a mechanic would do, basically, isn't it? We've sealed all that sort of thing off.
Yeah, it's actually what I'm doing in my university coursework, is how to adjust certain set up specific things. And there are plenty of stuff that's a big ordeal to do. But there's things like camber, toe, suspension, dampers. They're all a lot less commonly understood by the general sim racer. So I
have no idea.
We've put some good settings for those for each car, and we've said these are locked for everyone. You can change things like the brake bias, the traction control, all kind of the simple things most people will understand. Oh, a bit of a lag from Josh Martin there.
Oh, yes, there is, and one driver goes round because of it. And who was that? Was that Paul Laramie? And Rich Hayden goes off the circuit. So Josh Martin, we did hear the reason why he was not in qualifying very well was because he had a problem with the internet. Well, he's done a full network reset, and Rich Hayden was fairly convinced that that would be good enough to figure it all out and stop him lagging. But clearly, it hasn't worked, has it? Well, shout out to Craig Curtis up into third place, by the way. Scott Bugner's chasing him down, don't get me wrong, but look at the gap that he's got. That's fairly impressive. Craig Curtis is that Josh Martin? But who is that lagging all over the place? Is it Josh? Because there's someone just completely drifting and crabbing, and I think it is the back marker. Yeah, it is Josh Martin, isn't it? Because he's in between Craig Curtis and Scott Bugner. He's trying to overtake Craig Curtis, trying to unlap himself. But look, his car is all over the place. This is going to be very dangerous, Lewis.
Josh has been complaining. Well, I say complaining. Well, the issue is very valid. His car has not been registering lap times correctly. So he's been trying to go around in the test server to set a lap, and it just won't register. So he was genuinely in the fight with Scott in 5th place up until this lap. So what I think has happened is it just hasn't registered that he's crossed the line. So he's actually should be in 3rd place at the moment, but I think his ping coupled with that issue has caused the little bits that we've seen. I said Andy Carroll was going to have a bit of a difficult afternoon. He's up into 8th place, so they're a good recovery drive from Andy so far.
Yeah, well, I think what we might have to do, you're right, Josh Martin's data is reading very weirdly. He's actually still behind Odin, apparently, which obviously is not going to be the case because Odin's 3 laps down and still is just parked at the apex of the hairpin, or the entry of the hairpin, sorry. So, yeah, not sure what's going on with Josh. We'll call it as if he's 12th. We'll call Craig Curtis as 3rd, and then we'll hopefully have some kind of replays and potentially some stewards look into that, and potentially even some technical people look into the server as well. Here's on board with Scott Bugner as he tries to chase down what I'm going to say provisional 3rd place. He's currently sat in 4th according to the timing screens, and well, he's got Craig Curtis set well in his sights. Joel Lasker's dropped off the back of Eric Axelson. He's about 8 tenths away, so maybe that slipstream isn't quite as powerful, like Lewis said earlier. Or Lewis, is there a chance that he's trying to conserve those tyres, or do you think that's probably not really going to be in his game plan just now?
I think it depends what tyre compounds people have selected. I think Craig's been very sensible and just let Josh go, knowing that car is going to lag all over the place, potentially. Staying far away from it is probably quite a sensible idea if you're thinking, I'm trying to protect my podium. But we're on board with Scott here, and he's lining up the move already. And if there's anyone in VRRC you don't want anywhere near you when you're trying to defend the 3rd place, he's spun off.
No, he spun off because I think something to do with Josh Martin. He was almost like he was wheeling through that final chicane, and he's causing lots of problems. Josh, isn't it? We don't know where he is. Is he gone? Is he disconnected? No, he's still in the server.
He's in the pits now.
Yeah, no, it's. In fact, as you know, I was put in the broadcast saying that he needs to stop because his ping is well into the 3,000s right now. As I'm looking at 3,600, 3,700, it's climbing. Normally, your ping wants to be about 20 to 30. His is at 3,770. That basically means his internet has gone poop, basically, and that is why Josh Martin has DNF'd. But that doesn't help the drivers he's affected along the way, does it really? It's Joel Last trying to chase down Eric Axelson. Those 2 drivers haven't been affected at all from it. But Craig Curtis potentially losing out on that podium position. We've had Rich Hayden also spinning off, and Paul Laramie. So it's not been a particularly great event from Josh Martin's perspective. He's not making many friends out there, hence why he probably retired it. So we'll move on and focus on the battle for the front 2, which is looking like it's heating up quite nicely. There is a in-camera perspective of Eric Axelson in his sim, looking really rather carbon composed. He's got this sort of, it's almost like he locks out his shoulder blades or something. He doesn't get those shoulders right back, and that's how he drives it. It doesn't look particularly comfortable. Head right back as well, but he seems to be pretty quick at it.
Yeah, I think sim racing is one of the things where you can just look at people's seating positions and think, I could never, ever sit like that and be comfortable.
Yeah.
And then you'll look at somebody else who's equally incredibly fast in a completely different seating position that you still think, I could never do that. And it's probably people think it about for your seating position as well. It's just one thing that everybody's so incredibly different, and it seems there's no one right answer to how you're supposed to sit in the sim. And, you know, Eric's leading the race just about, and they're very far ahead of third place, so he's obviously quite comfortable and quite fast with it, so yeah, he must be happy with it.
Yeah, we're not one to judge, and to be fair, the way I slump over my microphone and my desk while I'm doing these broadcasts, actually, and my back ends up killing after about an hour. I end up muting my mic and trying to crack my back to try and relieve some of the pain. So, yeah, he looks like he's got a lot better posture than me right now, put it that way. But he's the gap is about halved. I said at one point there was about 0.8 of a second. It's halved. It's gone down to 0.4. But out of a few of these corners, Eric seems really smooth on the power, doesn't he? His application on his right foot, which is very important in a 650 horsepower car, Lewis, seems to be very nice indeed. And we're expecting Eric, particularly, to be very nice on the rear tyres, given his driving style.
Yeah, Eric is, as we've mentioned countless times now, is incredibly smooth on his inputs. It's also been one of his little weaknesses as a driver, is sometimes he's a bit too smooth, but he's beginning to now tune out the right amount of smoothness so that he can be aggressive enough to get the lap time out of the car, but still hold that really nice, smooth driving style. And it's working well for him now. He's back up to first place again, which is really where we usually see Eric. But I think these cars, they're tricky, and as we've seen from quite a lot of people, it's all right being consistent for 99% of the time, but you drop the ball once, and then all of that hard work is immediately undone.
Yeah, that was always the problem with me in real life, actually. It was constantly, oh, he's fast. Oh, he's on a wall. Okay, right, okay, let's rebuild the car. And that's the problem, isn't it, with motorsport? You can be, unlike football, where you can probably be rubbish 60% of the time, you only need to turn up for 40% of it and then win a game for your team, and all of a sudden you're lauded as the best thing ever. In racing, that's just not applicable. The speeds are so high, the precision is so... well, precision is so precise, I was going to say, but you know what I mean. You've got to be right on the money all of the time, and that is something that even in sim racing, in fact, I'd say arguably it's harder in sim racing than it is in real life racing to be that precise constantly, because you don't have all the other feedback going on around you, and you sort of, it's not life or death, so you sort of, the adrenaline's not going in quite the same way. Plus your perspective, Lewis, people underestimate how sort of field of vision and everything like that you need to be set up and comfortable in your car so you can see as much as possible whilst also not being necessarily out of place. We'll get back to that in a second, because I think Eric Axelson's had a bit of a mistake coming out of the spoon. Here goes Joel Lask. He got a nice run on him through 130 yard. They're not going to go side by side, thank God, otherwise we're going to have two other drivers end up in the wall. No, it's Eric Axelson clings on to dear life, but Joel Lask gets the lead of this race back. 7 minutes and 40 seconds to go, and Joel Lask, who qualified on pole, is now back in the driver's seat.
He absolutely is, and he's looking quick. That last lap was 9/10 quicker than Eric. So I wonder if Joel's just been sat behind, just really conserving those tyres, keeping the temps down, and then has thought, right, now I'm going to pull the trigger, and I need to pull away. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Joel is going to be pushing those tyres to the limit on this lap to try and break that slipstream range, and then hopefully rein it back in again and just keep his tyres in the window for if Eric decides to go for a push later on in the race.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame really that we although we have a lot of direct information and feedback from how the cars are acting and the lap times and things like that, we don't have sort of temperature of the car or anything like that, which would be really cool actually if Assetto Corsa ever did put that in for the ability to broadcast that'd be absolutely awesome. But we'll have to wait and see if that ever appears. But you're right, I think Eric Axelsson, who looks a little bit like he's overdriving the car, he's a little bit more driving it, his steering wheel, he's soaring at the steering wheel, isn't he, a little bit more than we're used to seeing here, Lewis. Yeah,
you don't usually want to be soaring at the steering wheel. It's all right when you're kind of not really turning too much, but it's when you start slipping the tyres, it's kind of all right if you're just doing it to because there's bumps on the track and the force feedback's jolting your hands. But when you start actually creating that slip in the tyre, that's when it becomes a disadvantage. It looks like Joel has put together a very good lap so far, so he just needs a good final chicane, and then he might be able to pull away from Eric. We'll see what Eric can do through here.
Yeah, Eric is actually purple sector 1. So he was very quick through the first sector, not so quick through the second, which is a little bit more technical, and that's where we saw a lot of chopping at the wheel. As he goes through across the line, who does have the faster time? Well, it's going to be Joel, isn't it? Because he's eked out a gap. The last time there, yeah, about 0.2 of a second the difference. Advantage to Joel. Fastest lap of the entire race, though, is advantage to Eric Axelsson, a 1 minute 45.9 compared to Joel's 1:46.0. So it's going to be very close in terms of who gets the points for fastest lap. And I do believe fastest lap is still worth 3 points. Yes, it is. So that could be crucial. We could see Eric coming second in the race, but because he got that fastest lap, he ends at 1 point ahead of Joel. Because the difference between first and second place, I believe, is no, it's 3 points actually. So they could still end up coming out of this tied on points as long as Eric holds on to that fastest lap. Then we have a qualifying point, don't we? Oh, it doesn't matter. I think Joel will still end up on top, but only by 1 point is my point. So going into race number 2 with that reverse grid, our 4-round championship, Lewis. You cannot slip up, can you? Because I don't believe there are any drop rounds in this championship.
Yeah, well, to put it in perspective, you can't slip up in an 8-round championship in VRRC. True. Because at the end of the touring car championship, with all the judiciaries done, the difference between finishing second place and finishing in 4th place was, I believe, 2 or 3 points. It was all that covered 3 drivers. And that's in an that's in a technically 7-round championship if you ignore the dropped round that everybody had. But yeah, you really cannot afford to slip up. And look at how much they're pushing each other. They're 8 milliseconds was all that separated these two on the final lap.
Yeah, they both went for a fastest lap attempt there, and Eric Axelsson purpled sector 1 and sector 2. Joel Lask purpled sector 3. So across the two of them, they did set a perfect time out there. But it was Eric Axelsson who got a 1:45.73, and Joel Lask with a 1:45.74. So that is incredibly close. As Lewis has just said, 7 thousandths or something, or whatever it was. It's incredible, really. They're both slightly off it through this lap, which is not surprising. They probably both cooked their tyres, but I think Joel was probably hoping that he could just turn it on and drive away, but Eric hasn't allowed that to happen.
No, he hasn't. He's stuck with Joel very nicely here. I think we're seeing very much a difference in 2 driving styles. Joel is very much the more aggressive style, and Eric is much more precise and smooth. And I think we're also seeing the car choice is helping their styles. They've really picked 2 cars that complement the way they drive. The SNX, or the Acura, if you will, that Joel is driving, rewards being thrown into the corners. That's why I picked it, because I like being able to really chuck the car in with big speed, and it sticks. It does that really well. Whereas the Moyoda, or Toyota, if you will, that Eric has chosen really rewards being smooth and precise, especially through that first sector. That seems where Eric is reeling Joel in, and then as maybe the speed might be a factor as well. It might be a bit quicker in a straight line than the Toyota. He loses out a little bit there, but he gains a lot through here. Joel takes a very different line. Oh. Ooh, that was millimeters away from going off, and there on the exit. So, whoa, Joel is off.
Oh, Joel's off. I was just having a look and seeing what the sector times were going to be, but Joel Lask throws it off, and we thought Eric Axelsson was on the edge of glory. Well, Joel Lask has thrown himself off the circuit, and all of a sudden Eric Axelsson's inherited or re-inherited the race lead, and he has a nice little buffer between himself and second place now, 1.5 seconds. With only a minute and a half to go, we're almost verging. This is the penultimate lap, isn't it? And with Eric with a nice buffer, like we just said, doesn't have to push it anymore. He can take 0.2 of a second off his lap and still win this comfortably. Joel Lask has seen a race victory fly away from him. We said these cars are hard to handle, Lewis, and well, I think the perfect example of this is these two drivers, because they were on the absolute edge of the grip. We've also had a drive-through penalty, by the way, for Scott Bugner for some reason. And I was about to, my next topic of conversation, Lewis, was the gap between these two and everybody else, which is Scott Bugner, who's currently in third place. I think he might have just had a drive-through penalty for cutting or something. I'm not sure if that's actually going to apply or not, whether it's going to be a post-race penalty, I'm not sure, but it's 10 seconds, the gap between Joel and his teammate, Scott Bugner. 10 seconds, Lewis. Is that just because these two are aliens in the sim, or is that just because these cars are hard to handle, or is it because they were pushing each other? What's the solution there?
Well, Scott obviously had a little bit of an issue towards the start of the race, but I think they've pulled away since Scott had that issue. These two have just been pushing each other to that 110%. Don't believe what anybody ever tells you where they're on the limit when there's no cars around them. You are never, ever fully on the limit until you are in full combat with another driver at about the same speed or a little bit faster than you. When you're around those drivers, that's when you are on the limit, pushing like hell to try and just gain every little advantage. And this isn't over, because Joel has gained 6.5 tenths on Eric since that mistake. Joel is pushing like an absolute madman out here to try and see if he can get one opportunity into that final chicane. His tyres must be on fire. He's absolutely sending it. And I think we are going to see a move into the final chicane, because Joel is really pushing it into I'm going to make a move territory now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to be able to within a shout. He might not be close enough he might be sort of close enough for a really late lunge, a sort of out of nowhere Hail Mary. I'm not entirely sure he's going to be close enough to sort of really slipstream the back of him. We'll have to wait and see, because they're coming on to...
Dano's in the gravel.
Oh, he's in the gravel. No, he pushed too hard, Lewis. He pushed too hard. It was exciting, but it's just not going to happen. Eric Axelson, as long as he doesn't mess up the final chicane, will take the first victory here. And I have to say, I don't think either of them would complain if the other won this. I don't think Eric would complain if Joel, or I don't think Joel would complain if Eric won it, sort of thing. It's been brilliant to watch these two go toe-to-toe, wheel-to-wheel almost in these GT500s. They're difficult. I know Eric's going to have a sweat on. Joel was already sweating before we even got the interview underway for pole position. But Eric Axelson takes home the top step of the podium for race one here at the GT500, the VRRC. Joel Lask on pole position will take second. That's not the entire story of the evening. Scott Bugner comes home in third, and then 13 seconds is what we're going to have to wait until we see Craig, Curtis, and the rest of the field following in suit behind them. It's been a bit of a slog for some of these drivers. There was a little bit of carnage on the first couple of corners as well there, Lewis, but eventually we got there. Eventually there was a race. The top two certainly put on a show.
Yeah, they absolutely did. What a way to start the season. There was chaos all throughout the race there, and a little bit of an unsung hero of the race. Andy Carroll finished only 6 seconds off Craig Curtis in fourth, after being last with plenty of damage before we even got to turn one. So brilliant job from Andy. And of course, depending on how severe the penalty applied to Scott is, if he didn't serve that drive-through, that'll put Andy up to fifth already. So that's a really impressive drive from him.
It is indeed, yeah, actually, good shout. I forgot there who it was who actually came off worse before we even got to the first corner. Of course, it was Andy Carroll. Right, we're going to go to a very short break while we watch the adverts. We're going to get the podium sitters in for the interview, and we'll be back in about a minute's time. Yes, welcome back. And after an exciting, race one, we're going to be getting to the interview with two of the stars and plus a driver who we hardly saw any of, actually, in third place, Scott Bugner. But first of all, we're going to start with our race victor, Eric Axelsson. Eric, that was, I mean, it was touch and go. It was on the edge. It was exciting. I mean, talk us through it from your perspective. Are you sweating?
Yeah, it's quite hard as well. So yeah, I was sweating. That was good. That was fun. Yeah, it was a really, really close pace between me and Joel. It was so close. It was like only about not like doing any mistakes at all.
We saw two mistakes in total from the two of you. One from you coming out of the spoon, which allowed him to Joel to overtake you. Sort of what happened there? Because you disappeared behind the trees and then you just didn't quite get the exit. No,
exactly. I just almost lost the back end, ran a little wide, and yeah, he could overtake me on the straight. So, and then it felt like we had identical pace for the next 10 minutes or so, and then he made a mistake. So yeah, really close.
I was going to say, and then from your perspective, before his mistake, obviously, you both just turned it up a gear. You found another 10% or something, didn't you? Where you were just almost exchanging fastest laps for fun. You did end up with the fastest lap by 0.007 of a second, but you all of a sudden went about 0.4 quicker. How frustrating is it when you're going about 0.4 quicker and the guy in front of you has stepped up that equal pace?
Yeah, but that's the fun of it, especially in these cars, triggering each other to go faster and faster. I think it's really funny in these cars.
Well, fantastic, Eric. We're glad you got a big smile on your face. It's hard not to when you come home with a race victory, haven't we? Good luck with race number 2, and maybe we'll chat to you later.
Thank you, Jack.
Right, second place, and it's to the other half of that fantastic battle. It's Joel Lask, our pole position driver, but it was second on the road for you, Joel. My goodness, we saw the big beaming smile of Eric Axelsson then. Have you got a similar look on your face?
It was tough, that one. I'm a bit annoyed I threw that one away, but it just snapped on me. There's nothing I could do. I said at the start I wasn't going to, go the extra 10%, but we won an extra 15, so here's what it is.
Gonna say that I just mentioned to Eric those flying laps just before you made that mistake and everything like that. We got the impression something had to give. How on the edge were you? Did you think you were even in control of that car half the time?
I was over the limit, to be fair, probably a bit more than I should have been, but I was just trying to keep out of Eric's toe. That was the problem, because he's got much better he's got a lot less downforce than me, so down the straights he's just an absolute weapon, but just couldn't shake him and made that mistake, so it is what it is.
How did you actually swap positions in the first place? How did Eric get ahead of you in the first place, actually? Because we didn't see it. We were off watching other people fall off the circuit and crash and stuff like that. So how was it that you initially lost that lead?
I'd like to say I remembered. I think it was the first corner. I just ran a bit wide, put it a bit sideways, and yeah, that was it. He went straight past me, but the pace is there. We got a good pace, so I was able to catch back up pretty quick. It's just passing that's another thing on this track. So yeah, we'll see what we do the next one.
I was going to say, just before we move on to your teammates in third place, you got an absolute rocket start. That was, obviously it looked a lot better, obviously, when Odin didn't get off the line at all. But is that something you practiced, or knowing that that's always something that sort of is quite specialist in any car?
No, I practiced it once and I went pretty much backwards. So I think that was luck more than anything. But try and do that again for the next one, I guess.
I was going to say, try and build up that muscle memory, Joel, because it was an absolute rocket start. Probably a little bit too quick into turn one. That might be why you went wide. Anyway, we'll let you get back into the grid, and good luck for race number 2, reverse grid race in these cars. That makes me nervous, let alone you.
I'm not even going to think about it. We'll just send it.
Hey, that's what I like to hear. Love it, Joel. Thank you very much for coming and having a chat to us.
Cheers, Jack.
Right, and we've got to the other half of LB Motorsport. It's Scott Bugner coming in to have a chat. And I'll be honest, Scott, after the first maybe 3 or 4 minutes, we didn't see much of you. You got into third, getting through Craig Curtis, and then you just disappeared off. It's a bit no man's land in the end for you.
Yeah, whilst them two were sweating out in front, I just had a nice relaxing drive, you know, just chilled out. No, I made a mistake on the first lap and spun the car. So I had to get back to the field, and then Josh was lagging loads, and then his car just ended up like inside mine, and it gave me red front end damage. So I was kind of nursing it for the other half of the race. But yeah, it was good. It was, like I said, it was nice and relaxed, and this time we'll, as Joel said, we're going to get our elbows out and see if we can win it.
Yeah, well, you and Joel have a history of getting your elbows out with each other, don't you? So I'm looking forward to watching that one.
I still owe him a couple, so.
I'm sure he probably thinks the other way around. But yeah. I was going to say one last thing on that incident to get you into that third place with Craig Curtis. We were looking forward to a big lunge and a big move and everything like that. But that lag with Josh Martin is hopefully he's sorted it out, obviously. But how difficult is it when you're actually driving around that and trying to figure out what you can and can't do?
It is hard. You know, I try to impress. I try and go for the bold moves. I do try. But, yeah, it was really unfortunate that he just got caught up with Josh and it just caught him out coming out the last corner. But, no, we'll go for some big, bold moves in this one.
That's what we like to hear, Scott. We'll be keeping an eye on you and, obviously, Joel Lasker as well. Looking forward to it. Good luck for race 2.
Thank you.
Right, so we've only got about a minute left. So you got more than 15 seconds this time, Lewis, to fill us in with what you think. Obviously, race 1, race 2, reverse grid, they're always going to be very, very different indeed. We saw quite a few people struggling with the car. That must play a bit of a factor here, mustn't it? When people are just trying to keep hold of the car on their own, let alone in a race situation. Are we going to see people getting carried away?
Part of me wants to say yes, but I think the answer is definitely we're going to see so many people get carried away, I think. There's plenty of people who are going to be trying to cling on from the front, kind of the top 6. They'll be trying to cling on to good places. The cars behind will be trying to pass them as quickly as possible, all in a car that's very difficult to drive. So I think we're going to see all sorts here. I said last time Odin was going to be leading by turn 1, and then he was about 7th by the time we got to turn 1. So I'm not going to try and make a prediction on who's going to get to turn 1 first at the fear of cursing somebody and wrecking their whole race. So I'll go for the easy prediction on this one. I think Rich is going to do well. That's a bold one for you. I think he's going to do well from pole position, and we're going to find out very shortly.
We are indeed, yes. So Lewis wanted to keep his job here at VRRC, and the 5 lights are on, engine notes are up, and we are about to get racing with Rich Hayden from pole position. We've got John Jones alongside him, Kenny Press and Paul Laramie make it row 2. As you've heard, it's a pretty even start. 2 good starts, actually, from Rich Hayden and John Jones. They plummet towards the first corner here at Suzuka. No Sennaverse Prost sort of antics, but there is spins in the background. What a shock. Who had that on the bingo card? Right, who is involved with that one? We'll have a look in a minute, actually, because they're still spinning up in front. John Jones leads the way. Rich Hayden's in 2nd place. Paul Laramie's in 3rd. Joel Lasker's somehow got himself up to 4th. Just goes to show how many drivers potentially actually had spins, because obviously Joel started 2nd last in this race. Scott Bugner's up there as well. He's only in 5th position. So the 2 LB Motorsport drivers, they don't think they really need to get their elbows out, actually, to get through that traffic. I could be wrong. We might have a more judicial, obviously, in sorting out all of what happened after the race, but we haven't got a race replay, so we don't need to worry about it. We've then got Eric Axel's son, a winner of race number 1. He's in 6th, so the podium sitters, actually. 4th, 5th, and 6th from race 1. We got Odin as well. Where's Odin right now? He's in 8th place. Chris Blakey, even Craig Curtis, Alok Iyengar, Kenny Press. I think they were all involved with incidents right at the start. Bit of a shame that, Lewis, but sort of almost half inevitable at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. We saw something with Joel and Kenny coming into the S's. We saw, I think it was Andy Carroll was sideways through the exit of turn 1. So we've seen all sorts. So yeah, not quite the cleanest start in the world. However, I said Rich would do okay, and he's still in 2nd. So my job's safe now. I haven't cursed him on the first lap. So from now, it's Rich's responsibility whether he does well or not.
Oh, I was going to say, putting that responsibility on him now, are we? I see how you shake that up. I see how you swerve that. Sitting on the fence is Lewis's speciality from now on. John Jones is doing quite well himself, though, isn't he? Let's face it. He's into the lead. And there is Paul Laramie trying to truck it along. I think, is that an Aegon 49-inch display, actually, that I can see? Oh, it might be a slightly different, but I think it is an Aegon display. Lovely stuff there by Paul Laramie, trying to carve his way through the S's, but he's got the 3 drivers you least want on your tail right now. He is the cork in the bottle of the podiums of race 1. Joel Lask, followed by Scott Bugner and Eric Axelsson, and I'd like to say it's Eric Axelsson versus the LB Motorsport drivers, but to be honest, it's the LB Motorsport drivers against the LB Motorsport drivers, featuring Eric Axelsson. So they don't expect them to work together. Paul Laramie doesn't expect his car to work together with the with the road either. There's a spin for Joel Lask. Laramie couldn't quite hold on to it. Joel Lask basically had nowhere to go, and as Laramie came back onto the circuit, it's such a short run down to the apex there, Lewis. I don't think he could quite get the car stopped, even if he wanted to.
Yeah, he was trying to get the car stopped, but then Scott ran into the back of Joel while Joel was trying to not have an accident with Paul while he was trying to recover. So I think Scott did manage to get some revenge on Joel.
He said he owed him some.
He did say that, yeah, and I think he has done. But now we're going to see a different kind of battle involving some other drivers, which I'm really interested to see. We're going to see Andy Carroll, who's made his way up into 3rd place, versus Odin and Eric Axelsson, who did manage to get through that quite okay. So we're going to see one of our multiple-time champions up against somebody in their first VRRC race, and they're very similar on pace. So this one's going to be an interesting one to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and we got Scott Bugner. Providing he doesn't have any damage, if these 2 drivers hold each other up, and Andy Carroll potentially holds them up, we can see all 3 of them actually going a little bit at each other. It's going to be very exciting because, of course, this is one of the storylines, I should say. Probably is an alternate timeline as well, where Odin actually manages to get through in the race number 2. We can see what he's like with everyone. It's sort of something that we were building up to quite heavily in the post-qualifying sort of events, but then race 1, we never saw it come to fruition. Now we actually get to see what the number 3 driver has in his back pocket in terms of racecraft. Andy Carroll is not easy to get past, is he, Lewis? He's not as quick as some others. He prefers a front-wheel drive, that's for sure. But it doesn't mean that he can't place the car where he wants it. It may well slide away from him every so often, like I think it just did there, after hitting the curb a little bit too hard. And yeah, there we go. He actually jumps out the way almost as Odin tries to go through. Where's Eric Axelsson going to put the car? On the outside of Andy Carroll, Odin Mazur goes through into 3rd place, runs very, very deep, doesn't get the best exit that he could have done, but he doesn't really care because Andy Carroll is now in front of Eric Axelsson.
Yeah, I remember when I filled in for Eric Axelsson in a championship race in one of the early touring car seasons, and it was at Snetterton. Odin's
sorry.
off.
Rich Hayden's off. Oh, I don't know how, don't know where. Well, I do know where because we just saw where, to be fair, through the spoon curve. And I've absolutely no idea how, though. There goes Andy Carroll and Eric Axelsson through 130 yards. Don't go side by side. No, thank God they didn't. But who's that? It's Rich Scott Bugner going all the way. I mean, that's track limit, surely. If he managed to make the move, that would have been something suspect. Scott Bugner loses the back end. That curve doesn't seem very friendly on some of these cars at all. It's all popping off here in the second race.
Yeah, I think people are definitely struggling at that final chicane. You have to kind of hit the curbs at a certain angle, otherwise the car kind of bites back at you, which we've seen quite a lot there. It happens as well in the S's, which is what caught Joel out. If you look at the red and white painted apex curbs here, if you go over those at the wrong angle, as Scott has just demonstrated very nicely for you there, if you just do that, it slips the tyres and you get a big chunk of wheel spin, and it's not the controllable sort. You'll be round before you know it. But thankfully, it's giving us an interesting race, because dropping Scott and Joel further back down into the pack means we get to watch them have to race their way past the others.
Well, indeed, yeah. They look quite flat, the curbs, but remember, this is on a computer, and it's slightly difficult to sort of get that perspective. I'll talk about more of the curves in a minute. Joel, oh my goodness gracious me, what a move. If that had gone wrong, we've been just calling him to get sanctioned for that, wouldn't we? But my God, under braking, sideways, didn't really make much contact with Paul Laramie. I don't think Paul Laramie was expecting that by any means. He was defending that hard. No one expected Joel Lask to pull off what could be the move of the season right there. What do you think there, Lewis?
Yeah.
Almost called you Andy there.
Well, that's a very good compliment when it's coming from commentary. Yeah, I think we'd all wish to be as good at commentating as Andy one day. But yeah,
No, I do. I hopefully will.
what a move from Joel there. He was, I think Paul, it kind of thought, well, I've closed the door. He's not going through there. And then Joel's just kind of appeared, and Paul's kind of just gone like, wait, what? How has he done that?
Yeah, how?
To quote our famous friend Nicky Taylor, who just seems to shout "how" as soon as he sees anybody's lap time, and then proceeds to go faster himself in about 5 minutes. But yes, I think Paul Ramsey will be very confused as to how Joel pulled that one off. I think he was on the grass when he initially hit the brake pedal and had to just balance it nicely. But I was hyping up this battle earlier. It has resumed, and actually, shout out to John Jones, who has more than held his own at the moment out front, and is currently still winning the race. But is he going to be winning after Degner 1?
Whoa, my days. Going through 200 Eric Axelsen sees both drivers have a problem, and he goes through and has a problem himself. My goodness me. It's going to be chaos as they go down towards the hairpin. I wouldn't blame Odin if he looks up the inside. No, John Jones, I thought, was going to look at the inside as well. Wow, Lewis, that was a bit, well, towards that section of the circuit, you really don't want to be going on the inside. You don't really need to be going defensive, do you, as you head down the Degners. And John Jones thought, you know what, I don't need any room to go make the racing line. I'm just going to drive along the white line on the inside and see what happens. And didn't quite work for him.
No, it was an optimistic line from John. I see why he did it, because he recognised he'd got a poor exit, and he knew Odin was going to be probably like a nose width in front of him. So he knew he had to defend from him. But then I think just overcooked it and broke a little bit too late, didn't overcompensate enough for how much further wide of the racing line he was. So unfortunately ended up running wide, but is still up there in third place and lives to fight another day. As we can see, Eric Axelsen done 48.0 last lap. That's 1.1 seconds quicker than Odin. So he's beginning to stretch his legs again. Now, instead of Joel being up there with him, it's Odin. Will we see another group of two going for it at the front of the race? And this time, is Eric going to be bulletproof like last time, or are we going to see mistakes from him? What are we going to see from Odin? We've got no idea.
Well, you haven't, and that's the exciting thing of live sport, isn't it? Joel Lask has just put in the fastest lap of the race, 146.5. Yeah, about 2 tenths quicker than the front two right now, which is quite exciting. But Eric and Odin have just gone green. So's John Jones, actually, to be fair. And I'm going to put the commentator's curse down to you there, Lewis, because you said, oh, credit to John Jones, as we saw him going wide. Well, too narrow and then going wide, ultimately, aren't we? But yeah, it was a bit, you said it was also a bit too late on the brakes. Well, yeah, it's very late on the brakes. I thought he was off to Okayama already, to be honest. He was just going to go and send it all the way through. But he did manage to get it stopped. He didn't spin. He is still going. He is in third place, like you mentioned earlier, with Andy Carroll hot on his tail. Scott Bogan and Joel Lask have to keep an eye on them as well as they go through Spoon Curve. Odin goes a little bit wide and potentially get a nicer exit, though. He did manage to just about keep it on the circuit, but Eric's been in this situation before in this specific car, hasn't he? The only nervous thing he's probably going to have is with that new driver, sort of that question mark over his head. Oh,
this is brave.
130R, Andy Carroll on the inside. Well, that's about as well as you could have possibly imagined it was going to go. And that was, to be honest, I'm amazed that both drivers didn't end up in the wall. There goes Andy Carroll, eventually ending up in the wall about 300 yards further on from where he should have just tucked into the back of John Jones. 130R takes another victim there, Lewis.
Yeah, that was very brave, as I said in live commentary. I don't think the move was quite on there. I think Andy needed to be a bit further in front, because you have to commit to take that corner flat out. And if you're too far wide off the apex, then you are going to be at risk at running off there. So John definitely had to commit to the apex there. And from looking at it from this perspective, not from the chase cam perspective, where you can get a bit more information as to how far alongside they really were, it looked like Andy wasn't quite far enough alongside to make that one stick, and probably should have just tucked in behind and taken him into the chicane instead. But it's very easy to say from the high horse in the commentary box. It's much, much harder to make that decision in a split second when you're the one driving the car.
I was going to say, now you're a commentator, Lewis, you can no longer go into a car because everything you say is then going to get analysed, and then you'll go in a car, you'll do exactly the same thing, and they'll go, oh, well, you said this in commentary, so you're not allowed anymore. That's what I've learned anyway. Because otherwise people will pick up on it and they will pick it against you. And not that I'm bitter or had it said to me before anyway. Odin Mazur is right onto the heels of Eric Axelsson, and, well, the gap seems to be closing. There seems to be little mistakes here, there, and everywhere from Odin. Not enough to have dropped completely, but enough to sort of give Eric the breathing room every so often. He's had sort of 2 laps where he hasn't had to think much about it, but all of a sudden now Odin is right on his tail, isn't he? And I think with the slipstream potentially coming into play, it's going to be very, very close. Rich Hayden's out of the race. He's in the pit lane as well. By the looks of it, he just sent a message on our Discord, which prompted me to look, and yes, he is very much out the race. Who else is out? Oh no, I think that's your name actually, Lewis, isn't it? That's currently sat in the pits. Yes, it is. Yes, I think that you are. So, well, we've had more people, unfortunately not Rich, finishing this one. And in fact, is that another commentator's curse? He said he would do all right. Well, he's not done all right, has he? What? So I think your job is very much at risk here now.
It isn't, because I put the responsibility on Rich after he went round lap 1, okay?
You did. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
I binned off the opportunity to lose my job at that point.
You did, yeah, fair play. Okay, I'll let you off that one. Hopefully Rich will as well. Scott Bugner and Joel Lask. Now, this is an interesting fight. As interesting as Eric versus Odin, because as I said before, there is no love lost in this team. They don't work together. They're very happy just to race as if they are completely different branded cars, which they're not, which makes it really helpful for me as a commentator. I think Scott is the one with ping. John Jones gets it mixed up. Here comes Joel Lask through the middle. Through the inside, and through he goes. And he gets both of them after a mistake from John Jones, nudged Scott Bugner wide, and as they go nose to tail down the hill, down towards Spoon Curve, is there going to be a lunge? No, there's not. Scott Bugner thinks a little bit better of it this time. Joel Lask is into 3rd place.
Yeah, Joel Lask has managed to get the pair of them there. It is Scott with the pink accents on the car. That was a request from Rich Hayden to make sure that the 2 liveries were different when I did it for them. It's kind of based similarly on the Red Bull testing livery from years and years ago. I think it was 2015 it was, when they ran the Dazzle Camo livery, because Joel asked for a livery. So I just thought, well, what liveries do I think look really cool that might be interesting and different? I just sent him a picture of that livery and said, what do you think of this? And he said, absolutely, and here we are. So they're nice and easy to spot on track. You just look for the car that looks a bit like a load of zebras stuck together.
I thought you were going to say you just look for the car that's circa the testing from the 2015 season of the Red Bull, because everybody knows what that looks like. Everybody's not quite as encyclopedic as you are, Lewis, about every single race series, but you're right, it does look a bit more like a zebra. It almost looks like some fine china you might see in a charity shop as well or something. But yeah, it is a smart looking car, and the pink certainly does help what's got from this car. Has Joel Lask got a different kind of accent, or is it just black?
It's carbon for Joel, and then it's pink for Scott. One thing we have missed out on whilst following this battle is Odin has made a bit more of a mistake, or Eric has put some really blistering lap times in, probably a combination of the both. But he's dropped back to 3.1 seconds behind now, so this is really the closest battle on track, and there's going to be fireworks between these two, because there always is.
Yeah, I get the impression that Odin potentially just made one bad mistake, because the last lap there was a 2/10 gap between Eric and Odin, and I don't, from what we've seen of Odin, he doesn't strike me as someone who's going to lap after lap be about 4, 5, 6 tenths off, which is what it would have to be to eke out to this 3 second or 2.5 second margin. So yeah, it must have been just one-off mistakes. With 4 minutes to go, Scott Bugner versus Joel Lask. The battle for the podium positions is well and truly on, as Bugner, he said, didn't he? In fact, both of them said that they would get their elbows out. Both of them said they were going to send it. And, well, we've seen that, haven't we? Joel taking that opportunity up the inside of both Bugner and John Jones was just delightful. Loved every second of it. Looking forward to watching that one back a little bit later, actually. And, well, Scott Bugner then hoping probably to send his own hip and shoulder out here, there and everywhere, but he's sending his hip and shoulder out off the circuit right now. Runs very, very wide. Joel Lask can take a little bit of a sigh of relief. Could we be chatting to him for the 3rd time this evening? This time, that means he will have taken if we count pole position as a podium position, he'll have taken 1, 2, and 3 for our interviews, which is quite entertaining. Eric Axelsson, obviously, currently 2 first place, a near perfect evening for him, and he's just a purple sector 1. He's going for that fastest lap again.
Yeah, he is. But one thing about Joel is he seems to do very well in the special events. He has won both of the first 2 special events this year. Yeah, he won the NASCAR by about 3 meters or something crazy. They were about 4 wide at the finish line, and that guaranteed Joel the championship. And then he won the trucks special event, and here we are. So he's defending his special event king crown against Eric at the moment. And well, yeah, Eric's always consistent and quick everywhere. And it looks like Eric was the other person, as well as myself, who's really wanting to run something in these cars. So it doesn't surprise me that he's taken 2 wins. He really loves this car. So I think Joel is going to have his work cut out across the season. As you know, you were talking about track limits earlier, Jack.
Yeah, I think that's an abuse of them, I would say. Although he has lost an awful lot of time, hasn't he? Eric did get a purple sector 1, green sector 2, but it's actually Joel Lask, who's very, very quick indeed, but not quick enough to better Eric Axelsson's time, who's just set a 1 minute 45.7, which is pretty much good enough for maybe the 3rd fastest lap that we saw in race number 1. Before Eric and Joel started to push each other, it would have been good enough for fastest. Joel Lask, as I said, went green, purple, green, and it was only good enough for 146 dead. So that just goes to show how sort of lackluster his race has been so far from a pace perspective, or how many troubles he's been in, shall we say. He is in 3rd though. His teammate is nowhere near him. Scott Bugner. There's a 2-second gap now between 3rd and 4th, and I think this is still almost the closest we've got on circuit. Well, Odin's about 2.2 seconds away from Eric Axelsson. This is going to be the penultimate lap. I don't think there's going to be enough time. And there is Craig Curtis trying to chase down Kenny Press. Is that? Yes, it is actually. So the fight for 8th position. Craig Curtis, is that in the VRRC livery as well? Because I think that looks very similar to Rich Hayden's earlier.
Yes, it is. Craig kind of just he entered the Touring Car Championship quite late. So he got a VRRC themed livery from Rich because it was one he'd kind of made already. And then Craig actually really liked that, and then turned around and said, I would like a similar one for this championship. And yeah, he's kind of unofficial teammates with Rich. He runs as technically an independent, but it's very similar colours to Rich Hayden, so they're unofficial teammates, if you like. So he's flying the flag for the VRRC unofficial team. He had a good race 1, but I think maybe some incidents that we've not seen have just halted his progress in race 2. Because this isn't where he's qualified or where his pace suggests he should be in this race.
Yeah, no, it's not been ideal for him so far, has it? But what is quite good about these reverse grids, and specifically this championship as well, the sort of these smaller grid sizes, you do get a few other drivers a chance to shine, don't you? I mean, obviously, there's always the opportunity for mistakes and everything, unfortunately, with these cars being so hard. But you do get the sort of chance that maybe even the likes of Joel and Eric and Scott and Odin, by the looks of it, will make a mistake as well. And then the likes of Craig Curtis, Andy Carroll, Paul Laramie, and basically everybody else on the grid, you have that chance at the podium positions and a potential drive of the round, which we've got to think of as well, of course. We are on the final lap, and Eric Axelsson leads by 2.2 seconds. Joel Lask is about 5 seconds behind him. Here is Eric Axelsson about to come down and actually finish the race. He's that far ahead of everybody else. He's well on his way to 130R, and he'll be rounding this one. Now, can you explain this one very quickly to me, Lewis? It's a question I've always had about 130R. I get the 130 bit. I think it was something to do with 130 miles an hour or something. I don't know really. But the R, it's a left-hand turn. Why is it R?
It's because if the 130 is connected to the R, it is 130 degrees radius corner. That's why it's called that, and that's why 200R is called 200R.
200R. Well, there we go. Fun fact with Lewis Edwards as Eric Axelson crosses the line, and Odin Mazuria comes home in second place. Joel Lask finishes the podium and finishes his evening, taking, as I mentioned before, all 3 places on the podium, if you count qualifying on pole as first position. Scott Bugner is 4th. He missed out, and we unfortunately missed out on a bit of an epic battle between those 2 guys. John Jones was in 5th. Paul Laramie 6th, Andy Carroll 7th, 8th was Kenny Press, Craig Curtis 9th, and Chris Blakey is in 10th. Well, to be fair, actually, not everybody's crossed the line because we're having to wait so long, but there's such big gaps between each and every driver. I don't imagine that order is going to finish in any different. Rich Hayden is the only driver that unfortunately had the DNF. In fact, no, it's actually Alok Iyengar, isn't it, who's the other driver that DNF'd this round, unfortunately. So, yeah, Rich Hayden and Alok Iyengar, 2 drivers that we didn't see at the end of this race, which is a bit of a shame. We're going to be chatting to our 3 podium sitters, 2 of which we've chatted before, and for the first time in his VRRC career, we'll be having a chat to Odin as well. That's after this very short break. Yes, welcome back, everybody, to a post-race interview with our 3 drivers from race number 2 who made it on the podium. And first of all, it's a driver that we've already had a chat to once today. It's race winner from race number 1. It's race winner from race number 2. It's the Swedish assassin himself, Eric Axelsson. Eric, that one not quite as stressful towards the end, but at one point it looked like we were going to get a nice dicey battle between you and the newcomer to the championship of Odin.
Yeah, it was really a lot happening there at the start, the first half of the race. I don't know how I got through the field so easy. I was a little lucky as well, but then I had a nice battle with Odin. Well, that was fun.
I was going to say that beginning of the race, I'm going to ask pretty much every driver that we have here about it, because all of a sudden, halfway through the lap, we saw that you guys were, 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think, or something like that. And did you sort of just miraculously, did you plan it when you were going through? Did you plan to avoid the contact? Did you think I'll go to the outside if anything happens? Or did you just appear in the positions that you were?
Well, yeah, pretty much. The last, in these cars, I think just they're so easy to make a mistake, and just when something happens, just try to stay out of it and try to like catch up later. But yeah, the plan worked. I think it was nice to get a chance to race Odin as well. He was really fast. We were practically on the same pace. I think it was only like one a mistake that separated us. That was good.
Well, it certainly did look like it's a potential rivalry that's going to brew. Hopefully a competitive but friendly rivalry as well, obviously, between the 2 of you and Joel and Scott as well. It's shaping up to be one hell of a championship with all 4 of you very close indeed. Before I let you go, Eric, a big congratulations to your 2 race wins, but also driver of the round for this particular one. I know you had your hopes on an NGK hat, but unfortunately we don't have NGK hats to drive of the round in this championship. So you'll have to do it again in the next one.
Hi, thank you, Jack.
No worries, Eric. Right, moving on to our second place driver, and it's our newcomer to the championship, so hopefully we're going to get a little bit more about him. It's Odin Mazuria, and first thing I want to know, Odin, is how badly am I butchering that name? How do you say your last name?
That's actually pretty good. I've had times where it was worse, so that's pretty good.
I'm very proud of myself. I'm very proud of myself right now, and you should be very proud of yourself as well, because second place in what is, I know it's your second race, but first evening with us here at VRRC, you must be pretty buzzing.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think I could put up with that second place at first when I saw the pace from Eric, from Joel, and everyone. But yeah, pretty happy with that result. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch up with Eric. He was really fast, and yeah, as he said, I made a mistake, and that's what separated us. But yeah, pretty good race and a very good battle with Eric.
Yeah, I could sit here and ask you questions about everything for the next 15 minutes, so I'm going to have to hand pick which ones specifically to keep it short. First of all, race 1. I know we're talking about race 2 here, and the congratulations, but race 1, what happened? Because we didn't even make it through the first lap, I don't think. We saw you parked up on the inside of the hairpin. What happened?
Yeah, exactly. Well, in the first lap, someone crashed after the tool right-hander, I think, the one with the curb you take, and I tried to avoid it, and someone avoided too. So we were too wide on the road, and then I tried to let him some space, and unfortunately I took the curb, and that made me spin, and then I just ended up in the wall, and my engine was broken, so I couldn't move anymore. So yeah, I didn't know you could break the engine at that spot, but yeah, very good experiment.
Well, I was going to say, to be honest, I didn't know you could do that either. So, yeah. So that's very impressive, Odin. Congratulations, you've given us all something to learn there. Second race though, what was that mistake? What did happen? Because we were looking at a battle between Joel and Scott at that point, while you guys were sort of had it brewing, and then all of a sudden we looked back and there was like a 3-second gap between you and Eric. So what happened there?
Well, I think I did like exactly the same mistake as Joel did in the first round. So just took the curb a bit too much and over rotated. So yeah, I had to correct it and unfortunately get off the track. So yeah, that small mistake I think was the thing that separated us with Eric.
Well, it looked like you guys, as I just said to Eric, you guys look very, very close in pace, all 4 of you. So I'm absolutely very excited to see what happens in the next 4 rounds. But lastly, and I am putting you on the spot here a little bit, you're obviously new to VRRC. What sort of attracted you to VRRC? Did you see us on the live stream or something like that? Or is it just you got wind of the prizes or anything like that? What sort of brought you along?
Honestly, I don't really remember. I think maybe it was a Reddit post that mentioned VRRC, but yeah, as soon as I heard about it and came on the Discord, I saw that it was like the type of championships of championships that I like. So yeah. That's why I'm here, and I'm really happy to find people with great pace to battle with.
Well, it certainly looks like you're going to add some spark to the championship, Odin. Big thanks for you coming down, and obviously we'll hopefully, and more than likely, be having a chat with you over the next coming rounds as well. You've been fantastic. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the second place.
Thanks a lot, Jack.
Right, and lastly on the podium, we've already chatted to him twice already, so I'm sure he won't mind waiting a little bit. It's Joel Lask taking that 3rd spot. Joel, that one you had to work a lot harder for, though, arguably, even though that first race was very difficult in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I managed to stay clear of all the carnage at the first corner. I made it through and just sort of keeping pace of top 4, top 3, and then I see Laramie get a little wiggle on and put it sideways, and as soon as he came across the grass, I knew I was getting collected into the next corner, and suddenly I'm sideways with about 5 cars in the side of me, so I had to go from the back to the front again, but it was a good race.
It was a good race, and it was particularly looked like it was shaping up to be a brilliant race between yourself and your teammates as well. In the second half, the last 10 minutes sort of thing, you were pretty much nose to tail, weren't you? And then there was a little bit of a coming together with John Jones, and then there was just sort of more mistakes made and everything like that. It ended up working in your favour nicely, didn't it?
Yeah, we went into the hairpin, and I'm not sure what happened to John, but Scott tried going around the outside. As soon as he did that, John went to fend him off, and he left a nice gap in the in the middle, so I just took my chances with that. But I didn't have the pace to catch up with Wout and Eric. I had too much damage on the car from the initial contact at the start, so it was sort of just stick where I am, and I'll take the points going into the next one.
Well, you took some decent points, I can tell you that. Looking forward to seeing how the championship lines up. But thank you very much, Joel, for all your chats this evening for each and every event. And good luck for the rest of the season.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Right, so that is our podium sitters, Lewis. And, well, what a podium it was. 2 fantastic races alongside it as well. It's been a decent evening, hasn't it?
To kick off the championship, it's been really exciting. And we saw 2 very different races. We saw lots of chaos in both, admittedly. But I think every driver shone in some form throughout the evening. So it was really good to... we had a slightly reduced grid compared to our usual championships, but it gave us that opportunity to show off the really good things that each driver was doing, which is really nice. And because it's a 4-round special event championship thing, the points are going to be nice and close, so everybody's all within a shot of doing really well.
Exactly. Another good thing about a 4-round championship, because if anybody's hating it out there, then it's over soon, isn't it? So they don't have to worry or complain too much. But the championship is what you were just alluding to. It's about to come up on your screen. There it is. Eric Axelsson, no surprise, is top of the points. 56 to his name. He pretty much perfect, apart from that pole position. Absolutely sensational from Eric Axelsson. Joel Lask with 43, Scott Bugner with 38, Craig Curtis with 30, and Andy Carroll only 1 point behind with 29. That rounds out the top 5. You got Paul Laramie, John Jones, Alok Iyengar, Chris Blakey, Kenny Press, Odin Mazuria, and then the owner of VRRC at the bottom. No, sorry, Rich Hayden. He is in the comms chat. He can hear me. I'm surprised he didn't chime up at that point. No, I thought there was going to be even more of a chime up
Jack.
No, I thought there was going to be more of a backlash from it. But yeah, that is the championship with Eric Axelsson absolutely cruising into the lead. But it's probably not the right description, actually, because he was very hard fought for both of those victories, but he drove superbly, hence the driver of the round. Right, where are they off to next? We have the rest of the championship up to grabs. It's Okayama in next week, and then Twin Ring Motegi, and then to Sugo, the track that is pretty much potluck for everyone. I think there'll be a lot of new laps, put onto the practice server for that one. I'm certainly going to have to try and find a YouTube video or something to walk me through it, or indeed Lewis can just walk me through it when he does the track map, actually, because of course we do put the track map videos up there on the YouTube as well, don't they? So there is a track guide on there for any circuit that we've ever done, pretty much. So if anybody out there is wondering how to drive Suzuka and you want Lewis's expert tips, then have a look at the VRRC YouTube page. Right, that's about it for the evening, isn't it, Lewis? I believe you're going to correct me now and say I've missed something.
No, you've done very well, Jack. You haven't forgotten anything.
He didn't even get the name wrong of the company either, did he?
He did earlier, but we didn't mention it.
I was practicing that in my sleep the other night. But no, it's been a really fun evening. And Rich, very quickly, what happened to you in that second race? Since you're here.
I was getting impatient behind John. I had a half spin, which I'm sure you saw on broadcast.
We didn't actually. We saved your blushes there.
We wanted to save our jobs, so we just hid it off the screen.
Well, I was just getting frustrated behind John because he was doing his usual excellent defending, and I went into a corner basically too hard on the brakes and had a bit of a half spin, dropped back. And then was kicking myself, and then kept looking at the track map to make sure everybody was still okay racing, and then had another incident because I wasn't paying attention. So all my fault. I should stick to race directing because I can't race direct and race at the same time.
It is pretty difficult. It is a skill, I imagine. I'm going to try commentate. Well, actually, no, we did get Andy to commentate and
we did,
race at the same time, didn't we? And that had mixed results as well, to be fair. He blamed everybody else, but oh well. Yes, but it's been brilliant. Thank you very much for coming in and having a chat, Rich. And thank you very much, Lewis, for jumping into the commentary box with me. Obviously, we hope that Andy is back soon, but he's got other things to be getting on with, so that's fair enough. We'll be happy to have you back in the commentary box whenever you needed. Lewis has done a fantastic job doing the broadcast and commentating. I just sit here and do nothing apart from talk and take the mic. Lewis does pretty much everything that you guys are seeing, plus talking and taking the mic at the same time. It's a very difficult job. He's doing a fantastic job at it as well. We'll see you next week for Okayama. It's been a fantastic evening of racing. Congratulations to Eric Axelsson. Thank you, everybody who's been in the YouTube chat, who shared and liked and done anything else, interacted with the stream. It's been a great evening. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Woo!